Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of the most important sources you know, breaking news, in-depth reports, and really pull out the key nuggets of knowledge and insight for you.
Yeah, our goal today isn't just giving you the headlines. It's about cutting through all that noise in the last 24 hours or so. We want to give you a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed.
Right, connecting the dots, finding those surprising facts that maybe stick with you.
Exactly.
And our agenda today, well, it really tells a story about just how interconnected everything is right now. We have a packed dive ahead.
We really do.
We'll be touching on everything from high-stakes international diplomacy and conflicts.
With fascinating scientific discoveries, environmental worries, and big shifts in tech and society.
Yeah, you'll hear about things happening all over the globe: London, Ukraine, Niger, and West Africa, New Jersey, in the U.S., even way out in the solar system, thanks to a discovery in Georgia.
So much to get into.
Okay, let's truly unpack this. All right, let's start right at the heart of it all: global geopolitics. There's what looks like a really high-stakes diplomatic chess match unfolding around the Ukraine conflict. President Donald Trump has recently floated a pretty significant idea for a potential peace deal, suggesting a land swap between Ukraine and Russia.
Which hints at territorial concessions from Kyiv, right?
Exactly. But it's crucial to say the details are, well, they're incredibly vague at this point.
It feels more like a concept, maybe a strategic opening, than a fully baked plan. We don't know which territories or how it would even work.
And that vagueness, it's met an immediate, very firm rejection from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
You'd expect that.
Yeah.
He's been absolutely unwavering, hasn't he? Reiterating Ukraine's commitment to its constitutional territory. No compromise there.
None. He's made it crystal clear any talks about Ukraine's future have to involve Kyiv directly.
He actually said any deal made without Ukraine would be a dead decision.
Right.
Right. Meaning it has no legitimacy for them.
That's the quote. And it's not just talk, is it? It raises a really fundamental question for diplomacy.
Definitely. Can you actually broker a lasting peace or make territorial deals stick if one of the main parties, especially the one giving up land, isn't fully involved in agreeing?
History suggests probably not. Deals imposed from the outside without real buy-in, they often just plant seeds for more trouble later.
Think about it, yeah. Redrawing borders without consent rarely leads to long-term peace.
And it isn't just Zelensky standing firm. The wider European position seems to be hardening too. They're presenting a pretty unified front against these kinds of external proposals.
Okay, so what are the Europeans saying?
Well, European nations working with Ukraine have put forward their own counterproposal. This is ahead of talks with U.S. officials planned for Alaska.
And their demands.
They're quite specific. They want ironclad security guarantees for Ukraine, and that explicitly includes the potential for North Atlantic Treaty Organization, that's NATO membership.
Wow, okay, that's significant.
And here's the key part. They insist a full ceasefire has to happen before any more steps are taken towards political settlements or land discussions.
Ah, so sequence matters. No talking territory while the fighting rages.
Exactly. It directly counters any push to rush a land deal without stopping the violence first. European leaders, the NATO Secretary General, they're all backing Ukraine on this. Kyiv has to be involved, end of story.
So that European stance really throws a wrench into any idea of a quick top-down fix.
It does. And adding another layer of complexity, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has been doing the groundwork for this upcoming Alaska summit between Trump and Putin.
Right, he was in Britain recently.
Yeah, meeting with UK Foreign Minister David Lammy, other European officials, Ukrainian officials too. And during those meetings, he made a pretty big announcement.
What was that?
That Washington plans to stop funding Ukraine directly in the way it has been.
Really? So what's the alternative?
His suggestion is that European countries could buy American weapons for Kyiv instead.
Ah, okay. So shifting the financial burden. That creates a whole new dynamic for military aid, doesn't it?
Completely. Some might see it as Europe needing to step up financially, take more ownership of regional security.
But others might see it as the U.S. pulling back crucial support, potentially leaving Ukraine more vulnerable and putting a huge strain on European budgets.
That's the debate, which naturally brings us to how Russia sees all this.
Which is, I imagine, quite differently.
Very differently. Moscow keeps saying President Zelensky is prolonging an unwinnable conflict, basically arguing that Ukraine should just stop fighting.
And their view on negotiations.
It's the opposite of Kyiv's and Europe's. Russia tends to see military gains as facts on the ground that come before talks.
Putin has said he's open to meeting Zelensky, but with conditions.
Yes, conditions that usually involve acknowledging Russia's territorial gains, implicitly or explicitly. Generally, the Russian stance is no concessions on Ukraine, especially the land they occupy now.
When you put it all together, the disagreements are just fundamental. It makes a quick peace deal seem incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Different goals, different views of reality.
Absolutely. And then there's the choice of venue for this August 15th summit, Alaska. It's really symbolic.
And there's a halfway point, you mean?
Much more. Think about the history. Alaska used to be Russian territory sold to the U.S. back in 1867, a peaceful transfer of land.
That's a powerful historical echo, isn't it?
And it played a strategic role later, like during World War II, as a key route for Lend-Lease aid to the Soviet Union.
Okay, so historical layers. What about the political angle?
Well, it's widely seen as a deliberate move by President Trump. Maybe to avoid the intense media glare and potential interference from other world leaders you'd get in, say, Geneva or Vienna.
A more controlled environment.
Yeah.
Makes sense for security, too.
Definitely. And then there's the Arctic dimension. Melting ice, new shipping routes, resources. Alaska is increasingly important.
Right, so maybe potential for talks on shared interests there, like energy or climate, even with all the disagreements.
It adds another layer of meaning, doesn't it? A possibility for dialogue, perhaps, amidst everything else. But that whole complex Ukraine situation, it's really just one part of a much bigger global picture, isn't it?
For sure. As nations react and rethink things, we're seeing shifts everywhere. Alliances, defense strategies.
Take Germany, for example. They seem to be embarking on a really significant military buildup.
Yeah, reports say they're planning a new National Security Council. And the focus is clearly on boosting their military to handle threats, both internal and external.
And the goal is ambitious Chancellor Friedrich Merz wants the Bundeswehr, Germany's armed forces, to be Europe's strongest conventional army.
And they're talking about bumping up military spending to 3.5% of their gross domestic product, their GDP, by 2029. That's huge for Germany.
It really is. This new council would coordinate everything. But what's fascinating is Russia's immediate pushback.
Let me guess, criticizing NATO militarization.
Spot on. And accusing Germany of fostering Russophobia in Europe. It just shows how deep the suspicion runs right now, that lingering distrust.
It's a massive shift for Germany, considering their post-war history. It'll definitely ripple across European security. And elsewhere, you see these delicate balances too, like with China, Japan, and Taiwan.
How so?
Well, there might be some tentative signs of better China-Japan relations, but things are immediately complicated by a Taiwanese official attending the atomic bombing commemorations in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan.
That's sensitive. Beijing wouldn't like that.
Not at all. They see Taiwan as part of China, with no right to independent diplomatic acts. But Taipei clearly wants to strengthen these informal ties with Tokyo.
And the U.S. is always in the background there, trying to maintain stability in the Taiwan Strait.
Exactly. It's a crucial waterway, a real flashpoint. So any move by Japan or Taiwan gets watched incredibly closely by everyone.
Speaking of strategic importance, let's talk resources. India and Australia are working on a new partnership.
Yeah, for strategic minerals. We're talking lithium, cobalt, rare earths, graphite.
The building blocks for EVs, electronics, renewables, defense.
Yeah.
Basically everything modern.
Pretty much. And this alliance is explicitly aimed at being a counterweight to China's dominance in securing these minerals.
Because China processes so much of this stuff right now.
Exactly. That gives them huge leverage. So alliances like this India-Australia one are about diversifying supply chains, building resilience, making sure key industries aren't overly reliant on one source. Strategic independence, basically.
It's a clear strategic move. And you mentioned leverage. Geopolitical tensions can have real economic costs, right? Look at Pakistan.
Yeah, they took a big hit, about 14.8 million US dollars. That's RSES 1,240 crore in just 2 months after closing their airspace to Indian flights.
And that was a response to India suspending the Indus Waters Treaty after that attack in Jammu and Kashmir.
Correct. That treaty is vital for water sharing. So political dispute, treaty suspension, airspace closure. Boom. A $14.8 million loss in just 2 months is a tangible blow for Pakistan's economy, impacting trade, tourism, everything.
It shows how quickly politics hits the wallet. And it seems the U.S., under President Trump, is also using economic tools pretty actively.
Tariffs seem to be back on the table.
He's reportedly considering new ones on Chinese imports, specifically linked to their purchases of Russian oil.
And hasn't his administration already done something similar with India?
Yes. For a comparable reason. It seems like a consistent policy approach. And it's not totally out of the blue. Remember Mark Cuban warning about price hikes from tariffs back in April?
I do, yeah.
He pointed to that viral post from a, quote, furious Meiji voter about the rising cost of diabetes medicine as a real-world example. It shows how these high-level trade decisions filter down and impact everyday costs for you, the listener.
Definitely brings it home. Now, shifting to the military and diplomatic front between Russia and the U.S., things still sound pretty frosty.
Very much so. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov recently said they're very far from detente, even though there's been some dialogue.
And this comes as Russia lifts its own restrictions on certain missiles.
Intermediate-range missiles, yes. They say it's a defensive move, responding to perceived threats from NATO, especially recent military exercises Moscow saw as provocative.
This is all happening after the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces, the INF Treaty, collapsed back in 2019, right? That treaty banned a whole class of missiles.
Exactly. It's collapse, and now Russia ditching these self-imposed limits, it points to escalating arms control tensions. A real lack of trust, suggesting a continued arms race. It feels like a step backward.
A dangerous step backward.
Exactly.
And just briefly touching on regional instability trouble in Mali again.
Yeah, dozens of soldiers arrested in the West African nation. They're suspected of plotting to overthrow the current ruling junta.
Which itself took power in a coup.
Right. It highlights this ongoing political instability in Mali, which is really a bellwether for the whole Sahel region, dealing with insurgencies, climate change, coup. It's a cycle.
And it makes international engagement really hard, doesn't it? With partners like France and the UN pulling back forces, it has ripple effects, migration, regional security. Instability spills over.
Definitely. Okay, let's move now to another incredibly difficult and tragic situation, the Israel-Palestine conflict, specifically Israel's plan for Gaza City.
Right. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his security cabinet have formally approved a plan to capture Gaza City.
The stated goal is dismantling Hamas's military capabilities and expanding Israeli control. But there are deeper concerns, aren't there?
Yes. Some experts are warning this could pave the way for building Israeli settlements there, which would fundamentally change Gaza's landscape, politically and demographically.
It raises huge questions about the long-term implications. Beyond the immediate security goals, what does this mean strategically? For humanitarian efforts? For any chance of a two-state solution down the road?
Could it just deepen the conflict? And the international reaction seems pretty strong.
Swift and mostly critical, yeah. The United Nations, the UN Security Council, held an emergency session. Top UN officials warned of catastrophic outcomes for Palestinians.
Things like mass displacement, more deaths, more destruction.
Exactly. And significantly, Germany, which is usually a very strong supporter of Israel, decided to partially halt military exports over this.
Wow, Germany. That's a big signal. It really shows the growing global isolation Israel might be facing on this and the depth of the humanitarian concerns.
And it's not just international pressure. There's significant dissent within Israel, too.
Protests.
Yeah, thousands have been protesting in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv against expanding the war in Gaza. They're worried it'll just escalate things further, endanger soldiers, and put the remaining Israeli hostages at greater risk.
And these protests are partly organized by the hostages' families, demanding a ceasefire.
That's right. It shows that Israeli public opinion isn't monolithic. There are deep divisions about the strategy and where this is all heading.
And meanwhile, the situation on the ground at Gaza sounds just horrific.
It's incredibly grim. Tragically, 5 people, including 2 children, reportedly died from malnutrition in just the last 24 hours.
Just awful. A clear sign of the humanitarian crisis.
The UN Security Council heard warnings that there is no military solution here and discussed the reality of starvation stalking the Gaza Strip. That phrase alone.
It's chilling. It puts the human cost right front and center. Lack of aid isn't just logistics. It's life and death.
And that cost tragically extends to journalists trying to cover the story. 4 Al Jazeera journalists, including Anas al-Sharif, were killed in an Israeli strike near Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City. They were in a journalist's tent.
The IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, claimed one was part of Hamas.
They did. Al Jazeera vehemently denies that, calling it a campaign of incitement against its reporters, saying they were just doing their jobs. It's a devastating reminder of the dangers journalists face in conflict zones.
Absolutely. And the conflict seems to be widening beyond Gaza, too.
Yeah.
Into the West Bank.
Reports suggest Israeli settlers are intensifying efforts to push out Palestinians there, seizing land, apparently with government backing.
So it's not just Gaza, this expansion of settlement activity displacing people. It makes a future Palestinian state seem even less viable and complicates any path to peace even further.
And the reactions ripple outwards globally. We're seeing huge protests, lots of arrests.
Like in London.
Exactly. The Metropolitan Police made over 500 arrests at a protest against the ban on Palestine action. That's the largest single-day arrest total for them in a decade.
Balanced on action.
Yeah.
They're the group known for direct action against companies they see as complicit, right? Property damage, that sort of thing.
Yes. And the ban falls under new UK laws aimed at curbing disruptive protests, which raises serious questions about civil liberties.
So the mass arrests show the authorities are serious about enforcing these new controversial laws. And someone was arrested in Belfast, Northern Ireland, too, just for wearing a T-shirt.
Apparently so. It really brings up fundamental questions about free speech and peaceful dissent when political issues get this charge.
Should definitely test those principles. And activism is popping up in unexpected places, too, like on Israeli TV.
Yeah, anti-war activists from Standing Together, that's an Arab-Jewish movement, actually stormed the stage during a live broadcast of Big Brother in Israel.
Seriously, on live TV.
Wearing Leave Gaza t-shirts. It's a pretty dramatic example of civil disobedience, showing how the conflict is impacting everyday life and public discourse right inside Israel. Even reality TV isn't immune.
Wow. But it's not all one-sided protest, is it? There were pro-Israel marches, too.
Yes, hundreds marched in London as well, calling for the release of hostages in Gaza and expressing support for Israel. It highlights the global nature of this, the deep divisions, the conflicting perspectives, even within communities abroad.
And it even spills into the sports world.
It does. Mohamed Salah, the Egyptian football superstar, criticized UEFA, the Union of European Football Associations, over their tribute to a Palestinian footballer, Suleiman Al-Abeid.
What was his issue?
He questioned the wording, the lack of reference to the circumstances surrounding his death, and he also publicly called for humanitarian aid into Gaza.
So using his massive platform to weigh in, it shows how sports stars can amplify these issues.
Definitely. And finally, on the diplomatic front, a really significant move by France seems to have complicated things.
What was that?
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio blamed the collapse of recent ceasefire talks partly on French President Emmanuel Macron announcing France would formally recognize Palestine as a state at the UN General Assembly in September.
Wow. France would be the first G7 country or UN Security Council member to do that.
Exactly. Rubio argued that this announcement might have emboldened Hamas, making them less willing to compromise in the ceasefire talks.
So a diplomatic move, intended perhaps as a step towards peace or international law, ends up potentially disrupting immediate peace efforts. It shows how complex the ripple effects are. Everyone reads these actions differently.
Precisely. Hashtag environmental health and planetary phenomena. Okay, let's shift gears now. Moving away from geopolitics, let's look at the health of our planet and some really interesting cosmic events. First up, environmental health. We've got a disturbing report about the Passaic River in New Jersey in the U.S.
Yeah, it's apparently one of the most toxic rivers in the country. Contaminated with dioxins?
Which are those nasty, long-lasting byproducts from industrial pollution, right? Linked to things like Agent Orange production, historically.
Exactly. And the cleanup at this federal Superfund site, that's the program for the worst contaminated sites, has been just painfully slow, mired in legal fights, financial issues.
And the main polluter, OxyChem, is resisting paying the full cost.
That seems to be the case. It's a classic battle.
Yeah.
Environmental protection versus corporate accountability.
But there's a positive side, too. Grassroots efforts.
Yeah, which really highlights environmental justice issues. People like Isaiah Cruz are out there literally pulling out invasive species, planting native ones, trying to restore the river's balance.
So local people stepping up when the big institutions stall, it shows the power of community advocacy.
Absolutely. Sometimes that's the most persistent force for change.
Now, speaking of contamination, there's a concerning report from Scotland in the UK, radioactive leaks.
Yes, from the Royal Navy's Coalport Weapons Depot into Loch Long. Apparently, burst pipes released low levels of tritium.
Tritium. That's a radioactive isotope of hydrogen, often a byproduct of nuclear stuff.
That's right. And while they say low levels, any radioactive leak needs careful watching. Tritium can get into water supplies.
And the cause was just poor maintenance.
Shortfalls in maintenance is the phrase used. It raises serious questions about safety protocols at these sensitive facilities. A bit chilling, really. What happens when critical infrastructure isn't maintained?
It is. And then there's the connection between climate change and its impact on people, especially vulnerable groups like women in Bangladesh.
Yeah, climate change has made monsoon flooding there much worse. And it's hitting women's reproductive health disproportionately hard.
But there are efforts to help.
The United Nations Population Fund, the UNFPA, is training women to prepare for floods and access reproductive health care. Volunteers are educating on family planning, maternal health. They're even using street traumas to raise awareness.
That's a really interesting, culturally sensitive approach.
It is, but challenges remain. Cultural barriers often lead to risky home births. There's stigma around things like menstruation. It just underscores how climate change, disasters, and gender inequality are all tangled together. A critical intersection.
From floods to the earth shaking, Turkey had a significant earthquake.
Magnitude 6.1 in western Turkey, in Balıkesir province. Tragically, one person was killed, about a dozen buildings collapsed. Immediate, devastating impact.
And the tremors were felt far away, even in Istanbul.
Yes, shows the widespread effect. A stark reminder of the planet's power in seismically active zones. And we saw nature's power visually closer to home, too, with that fire on Arthur's Seat in Edinburgh, Scotland.
Oh yeah, the big gorse fire,
Oui.
right near the city.
Exactly. Gorse is super flammable, especially when it's dry. The fire spread really fast across that landmark, a popular spot for walkers.
Firefighters got it under control.
They did, but police had to tell people to stay away. It's a striking example of a natural hazard hitting right near an urban area. Brings climate impacts like dry conditions right to the city's edge.
And on the weather forecast front, hurricane season is churning.
The U.S. National Hurricane Center is watching two areas in the Atlantic. One is a tropical ways off Africa that has a high chance of developing into a named storm.
Right, those African waves are often the seeds for major Atlantic hurricanes.
Yeah.
Constant vigilance needed.
Okay, now let's look up, way up. From earthbound issues to something truly celestial. This meteorite discovery in Georgia, U.S.
This sounds amazing. Fragments crashed onto someone's roof.
Yep. And scientists analyze them and think the meteorite formed more than 4 billion years ago.
Wow. Older than Earth itself, potentially.
Intentionally. It's like holding a piece of the solar system's earliest history in your hand. A direct link to the conditions before our planet even fully formed. That's a real aha moment.
Talk about a cosmic home delivery. And for skywatchers, the Perseids meteor shower is coming up, usually the best of the year.
Often considered that, yeah. Very reliable, often bright meteors. But there's a catch this year.
Oh, what's that?
The moon. It's going to be pretty bright, which will wash out the fainter meteors, affect visibility.
Ah, okay. So you need to plan carefully. Watch when the moon is low or set.
Exactly. Time it right to maximize your chances of catching the show despite the moonlight. Get away from city lights, obviously, and hope for clear skies. Hashtag innovations, regulations, and societal shifts.
All right, let's dive now into innovation, regulations, and those societal shifts that are constantly reshaping things. Starting with tech and AI, this situation in Peru sounds really strange.
It is a bit of a paradox, isn't it? Pampa Clemesi, this community in southern Peru, is right next door to the country's largest solar complex.
But they have no electricity themselves. They're in complete darkness.
That's the report. It really exposes a flaw in how these big energy projects sometimes roll out, especially in developing areas. The focus is often on connecting to the national grid or exporting power, not necessarily the local community right there.
So the people who live with the facility don't benefit directly. That seems fundamentally unfair.
It raises huge questions about equitable energy distribution, energy justice. What does sustainable development even mean if local communities are left behind?
A stark contrast indeed. Now, sticking with AI, what's the latest on that Chinese chatbot, DeepSeek? It made waves a while back.
Right. About 6 months ago, it really shook up Silicon Valley.
Right.
It seemed like a serious competitor. The question now is, has it kept that momentum?
Or has the incredibly fast pace of AI development kind of overtaken it?
Exactly. It's a good snapshot of how intense the competition is. Today's big thing can be old news tomorrow in the AI world. You have to keep innovating constantly.
AI chips themselves are becoming a geopolitical issue too, right? NVIDIA in China?
Yes. Chinese state media, specifically linked to CCTV, has raised concerns about NVIDIA's H20 chips. They're talking about security and environmental aspects.
And even telling consumers not to buy them.
That's the advice being given. It's more than just a consumer report. It really highlights the tech competition, the regulatory friction between nations like China and the U.S., this idea of tech decoupling. National security concerns are directly influencing tech markets.
And it's not just huge geopolitical tech issues. Sometimes it's the everyday frustrations with automated systems that get to us, like that parking ticket story from the UK.
Oh yeah, Richard Lynn's number plate mix-up got a penalty because the system confused his car with another one. So relatable.
It really is. And it points to bigger concerns about the accuracy of these automated systems we rely on more and more, and how hard it can be to fix mistakes when there's no human oversight, just an algorithm saying, you owe us money.
That cold, infuriating side of automation. Okay, shifting to public health and regulation. Sadly, there was a tragic shooting at the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah, absolutely awful. And reports suggest the suspect might have been influenced by anti-vaccine sentiments, believing he was harmed by a COVID vaccine.
That's what officials are indicating, linking it to that broader issue. It's incredibly sensitive, mixing health, crime, and the impact of misinformation. CDC staff are being reassured, and nearby Emory University had kids in lockdown during the incident. Shows the immediate fear and disruption.
And still within public health agencies, there was that strange situation at the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, with the top vaccine regulator.
Vinay Prasad, yes. He was ousted by the White House, then reinstated less than 2 weeks later.
And the ousting was linked to pressure from activists, like Laura Loomer.
That's what reports suggested, recent firings and a Loomer-led ouster. It raises serious concerns about political pressure influencing personnel decisions and the independence of these vital public health agencies. Does it undermine public trust if politics seems to be driving things?
It's a valid question. And speaking of health and trust, what about these wellness drinks that are everywhere now?
Right, the chill drinks. Do they actually work? That's one question. But there are more specific warnings now, especially on TikTok, about drinks like Feel Free that contain kratom.
Kratom. That's the herbal substance with opioid-like effects. Potential for dependence.
Exactly. And the FDA is being urged to regulate legal kratom products more strictly because of these risks. It ties together public health, consumer protection, and how social media trends can sometimes outpace scientific understanding or regulation.
Which brings us to an even bigger problem: fake science.
Yeah, this is deeply alarming. Fraudulent research networks are actively publishing fake studies. It's jeopardizing real medical research and eroding trust in science overall.
And AI is making it easier for them.
Apparently so. A new study shows the scale of it. Bad actors publishing fake research in thousands of journals, fueled partly by AI. Experts warn this misconduct delays treatments, biases analyses. Medical decisions could be based on garbage data.
Driven by that publish or perish pressure in academia.
That's part of it. It really makes you question the integrity of the whole scientific process sometimes.
Okay, let's look at business trends. Chipotle, everyone knows them. But they have a dual reputation now.
According to Business Insider, yeah. They went from Wall Street darling, amazing growth, happy investors, to a wall of shame employer because of criticisms about labor practices and workplace culture.
So a cautionary tale. Business success isn't just about the stock price. How you treat your employees matters hugely for your reputation.
Absolutely. It's a crucial intersection. And then there's that wild story from Connecticut in the U.S., the town CFO.
Oh, the one with the secret second job?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dawn Norton resigned after they found out her side hustle was being a full-time town administrator, 2,000 miles away in Wyoming.
How does that even happen? Two demanding public sector jobs in different states. You have to wonder about oversight in the remote work era. That's something else.
Dedicated, perhaps, but raises serious ethical questions. On a more mundane note, travel disruptions continue. Carnival Cruise Line canceled 5 more cruises.
Just cited recent changes. Vague, but it shows the industry is still navigating challenges. Maybe staffing, maybe supply chains, who knows?
But there are positive business stories, too. Like the teacher in the UK who started a jam brand.
Fred and Rosie, yeah. Apparently it's the UK's fastest growing jam brand. Focuses on more fruit, less sugar.
Tapping into that health-conscious consumer trend. It's a nice story of entrepreneurial spirit finding a niche. A sweet success.
And in finance, President Trump floated an idea about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the big mortgage giants.
Suggesting a mega stock listing, hinting at taking them public. These are government-backed entities, crucial to the U.S. housing market.
So privatizing them, that could have massive ripple effects on mortgages, housing affordability, the whole financial sector.
Potentially huge. And finally, an important social integration story from Germany, helping women refugees find work.
Right, the Work for Refugees project, addressing things like trauma, language, childcare, the real barriers.
And seeing some success, 68% find work after 8 years. But women still lag behind men, facing those extra hurdles. It's a vital effort for stability and opportunity, acknowledging the specific challenges refugee women face. Hashtag tag societal observations and sports highlights.
Okay, let's round things out with some societal observations and then hit some sports highlights, often looking for those broader connections. First, cultural appropriation in fashion. It keeps coming up.
This time it's U.S. designer Willy Chavarria and Adidas with their Oaxaca slip-on sandal in Mexico. Backlash for appropriating indigenous designs.
Did they acknowledge it?
Chavarria expressed regret for not partnering with the community. Mexican authorities sought compensation. It just highlights again how crucial respectful collaboration and acknowledging origins are, not just taking designs.
A lesson the fashion world seems to keep needing to learn.
Yeah.
And then there's this whole debate about what it means to be culturally Irish in 2025, sparked by Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, him identifying as culturally Irish despite growing up in England, it opens up bigger questions about modern identity, heritage, belonging. Is it just about where you're born, or is it connection to language, culture, history? The lines are blurring.
Interesting. And you know, sometimes things are just bad, like movies. Why do we sometimes love terrible films?
Slight chuckle. The so bad they're good phenomenon.
Yeah.
Citing the new War of the Worlds getting a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. Maybe after all this heavy news, we just need something unequivocally awful to cleanse the palate.
Could be. A shared experience of cinematic disaster. Okay, quickly noted. A fire in Hong Kong closed a road, but no casualties reported. A reminder of urban safety needs.
And a really lovely story from Paris, France. Ali Akbar, a newspaper vendor there since 1973, got the Order of Merit.
From President Macron, who used to be his customer.
Exactly. Just a wonderful nod to community ties, long service, the quiet contributions people make to daily life.
That is heartwarming. We also note the passing of William H. Webster at 101, the only person ever to head both the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency.
An incredible career spanning decades of turmoil. A unique figure known for his integrity.
And on a stranger note, a man actually named Jesus Christ in Kazan, Russia,
Was fined for illegally registering foreign nationals in his apartment. Yes, that's his real name. Definitely a unique headline related to Russian migration laws.
You couldn't make it up. And in cinema with more weight, a hit Chinese film, Dead to Rights, is focusing on Japanese war crimes, specifically the Nanking Massacre of 1937.
Emphasizing historical memory, resisting distortion, even with graphic content concerns. Shows the power of film in shaping national narratives about difficult history.
And finally, before sports, those conflicts on Hong Kong flights, attributed partly to stress, confined space, boarding hassles, and social media influence.
Yeah, experts suggesting modern life stresses, amplified by being online, might be making us more irritable even at 30,000 feet. An interesting look at behavior. Okay, let's shift to sports, often a mirror to society, and tragically we start with boxing safety in Japan.
Awful news. Two boxers, Shigetoshi Kotari and Hiromasa Urakawa, both just 28, died from brain injuries after fights on the same night in Tokyo.
It's just devastating. It sparked a huge debate about safety regulations, calls for stricter oversight in combat sports there. It's more than sports news. It's a fundamental health and safety issue about the risks athletes take.
A terrible reminder. And injuries hit legends too. Mariano Rivera, the Yankees pitching icon, tore his Achilles during an Old Timers Day game. Needed surgery.
Ouch. And NASCAR driver Connor Zilisch had a scary fall in Victory Lane at Watkins Glen. Needed hospital treatment. Shows the physical risks are always there, even in exhibition games or celebrations.
In women's rugby, a big win for England over France, 40-6, in their final warm-up before the World Cup, shows the high level of competition and growing profile of women's sports.
In the NFL, the National Football League, preseason buzz around rookies like J.J. McCarthy and especially Jackson Dart for the Giants. Always exciting to see new talent emerge.
And a touch of pop culture meets sports. Shedder Sanders' mom's outfit drawing attention at a game. The world around the athletes often becomes part of the story.
And circling back, Mo Salah questioning that UEFA tribute, again, showing sports intersecting with global politics and humanitarian concerns.
We saw Crystal Palace beat Liverpool in the Community Shield penalty shootout, Henderson the hero. Great drama.
We remember Japanese soccer legend Kunishi Kamamoto, who passed away at 81, and congrats to Florian Wirtz, named German Men's Footballer of the Year.
And finally, fan power. Sheffield Wednesday fans protested their owner by hiring a plane to fly a banner over another team's stadium.
The message, "Sell up, you plonker!" Slight chuckle. Shows the passion, creativity, and sometimes directness of fan activism when they're unhappy with club ownership.
Wow, what a journey through the news today, from that intricate Ukraine diplomacy and the heartbreaking Israel-Palestine conflict.
To meteorites older than Earth landing in Georgia, the ethics of AI, the toll on athletes. It's a lot.
We really hope this deep dive helps you cut through some of that noise, not just the headlines, but maybe some of the why and what does this mean for me behind them.
Yeah, it's such a crucial reminder that none of this happens in a vacuum. Everything feels connected, and seeing those connections is key to being truly informed.
So, as we think about how fast information moves, all these complex issues unfolding, here's a thought for you to chew on. What really stands out to you about how intertwined all these seemingly separate global events actually are? And how does seeing those connections maybe shift your own perspective on staying informed and engaged?
Something to think about. Thank you for diving deep with us.